When life throws you a curveball, how are you going to handle adversity? Welcome to the Fearless Mindset Podcast, where you're about to go on a journey as I interview security, business, and entertainment leaders on what it takes to stay fearless. I'm your host, Mark Ludlow, and enjoy today's episode.
Is that normal for most cases to go to trial? You like you said, you try to help and get them treated, go to the hospital and get on medication.
No, usually it's just the worst cases that go to trial. Hers went to trial, and there were a few others, but most of the time, you give that person a taste of jail, and you offer them an out and get treatment. Okay. Hopefully, the treatment works.
Sure.
With the erotomanics, the delusional people, it's more difficult because it doesn't. Usually, the way a victim in one of those cases can get relief is just hope the person goes on to somebody else.
Wow. To fixate their addiction on somebody else to get that stimulus.
Yeah. But if you can get the person treatment and get them in a better space and get them to stop, that's, like I said, that's all you want.
That's all, exactly. And I can see that becoming a, go ahead.
Some personal interaction with Jackson Brown, very nice guy. One of the best moments of my career. He was also in Santa Monica.
Okay.
I'm not saying that Santa Monica is full of crazies people, but Jackson has a recording, or at least did back in the day. He had a recording studio in Santa Monica, and he's very, very down-to-earth guy. He liked to ride his bicycle around town, and there was an emergency room nurse who developed a fixation on him. And it was a weird situation where she could apparently hold it together during the day and do her job. But then in her free time, she was a little crazy, for lack of a better word. And at first it was love, and she would send cards and letters. And when I answered, it turned to hate. And at some point she decided that she had written one of his songs. So she started demanding royalties. And then eventually one day she showed up at his studio, and she lay in wait. And when he came out, she physically attacked him. And she had been doing things like vandalizing cars. She was drawing pentagrams on doors and things like that. And then it came to a head, and we prosecuted.
Wow.
One of the best moments I had is I went out to see Jackson in his studio because I had to talk to him about his case and interview him about what happened. And he's giving me a tour of the studio. And at some break in the conversation, I was just trying to make small talk. And I brought up a radio program, a newscast or something I'd heard that morning about the Rolling Stones. And they were being sued from allegedly taking music from some old blues musicians who had lived in the 30s and 40s and taking their music. And I asked Jackson Brown about that just to try to keep conversation going. And his response was, yeah, I asked Mick about that one time. Mick told me blah, blah, blah. He goes, you know the song. And he picks up a guitar and he starts playing for me.
Nice.
I'm sitting there having a one-person concert with Jackson Brown.
How cool is that?
And getting paid by the taxpayers.
There you go. Wild. Now, can you dive in a little bit with how to go with Madonna? That's that case. What was that like?
Madonna's case went to trial. Now that I think about it, I had a small role in that case in assisting. She was being stalked by an erotomanic, a guy who was in love with her and had delusions that they had some sort of relationship. I can still see his face now that I think about it. That case went to trial. One of the interesting things about Madonna is that she was very difficult. She, in terms of cooperation, she did not want to cooperate. She didn't want to testify. And we had to go to great lengths to make that happen.
Is that because you're trying to protect her brand, you think, or protect her image?
Who knows? I don't know. I just know the job was not easy for us, and we had to go to some great lengths to get her subpoenaed and get her to court, but we did.
Wow.
He got convicted.
Dang. Yeah, the celebrity world up there they're a different animal up there in LA.
Some of them are.
They are. They're running an industry. They're running a a business. And a lot of them, they don't want to take that legal advice because, that they have to worry about their branding reputation and the risk on that. And I can see why.
Yeah. Or some people just can't be bothered.
They don't want to be bothered.
I had one celebrity tell me that he didn't want to cooperate with prosecution because he didn't think people should be put behind bars.
Whoa. A value system.
Yeah. Well, you can take him in. Bring him home. He was trying to get in your house. You don't want him behind bars.
Exactly. Yeah. Now, looking at the Britney Spears situation, did you have much more involvement with that one?
I did. I can't talk about that case a whole lot because it never became public. In fact, a lot of my cases in private practice don't become public.
Yeah, gotcha.
Out of that.
Totally understand.
I try to go to great lengths to keep them private for the client, and I don't want the perpetrator to get the notoriety.
Yeah. That's smart.
Yeah, but she had some issues, and I worked with her. A lot of your celebrities have issues.
Oh, they do.
Most really well-known people have at least one stalker, if not several, at any given time. Going to varying degrees to do what they want to do. Yeah.
A buddy of mine, Brian Anderson, actually worked with Britney Spears and was on that team for a while. Brian Anderson's been on my podcast. He was with her for 7 years. And every celebrity, it's the price they pay for what they have.
It's the price they pay, unfortunately, for the price.
It's a business machine that they're running,
Yeah.
And no human being is perfect out there. And just watch.
Rose was a very interesting case.
What's that?
Axl Rose was a very interesting case.
Oh, Axl. Yeah.
There's that case was a woman. I can still see her face, and I do remember her name. I think she was from Ohio as well.
Midwest. What's up with these Midwest folks?
Santa Monica and Ohio. I don't know what that seems to be the theme as we talk about it.
Right.
She came out to his place. She found out where he lived at the time in Malibu, and she came out with a whole kit. Memory serves me correctly, she had bolt cutters to cut through the fence, and she had a bag of bait, meat or something, to lure his guard dogs away.
Whoa.
She cut through the fence. She lures the guard dogs through the fence to the other side. She goes through the fence and ends up in the house, screaming for him, looking for him.
Holy crap. I'd be freaked out.
Steven Spielberg's case. Very scary. And I was only involved in the tail end of that. Ron Saunders and Scott Gordon were the main prosecutors on that. But I was in the unit and involved at the very end. But he had a mentally deranged guy who had this elaborate plan. And in fact, I still have a copy of the laundry list of items he was found with that he was ticking off. He was trying to accumulate. And what he did, this perpetrator did, was he surveilled Spielberg's residence for a period of time and saw that Spielberg's wife, I believe it was Kate Capshaw at the time, she had a certain card. I think it was like a nondescript Ford or something like that. And he noticed that she would drive back and forth in this car and security would see her and let her in. So he went out and got a car just like that, and took his items. And his plan was to go in. He had handcuffs and razor blades. He had different items, and his plan was to handcuff and sexually assault Mr. Spielberg in front of his family. Luckily, the plan was foiled. Something tipped the security off when he approached the gate in the car, and they realized something wasn't right, and they managed to stop him. But, it gives you an example of what these situations can turn into. They're not many times just harmless little annoyance from overeager fans. They're people that really mean to do harm.
And I think the celebrities, they live in a world in which, unless there's something going wrong and they're scared for their life, they really don't see the need for a diversion of security or having a team outside their gates check in or They just don't want to pay for it because they think it's a waste of money until they're afraid for their life and they get, noticed by LAPD saying, hey, this is a detective unit and we just got word that you got a stalker. And we're working with Mike's and his company because we're working on the case. And then they pull the trigger and decide, oh, maybe we do need security. And that's a perfect example of a very tactical.
A lot of the people I work with do have security.
They do?
In fact, that's usually my contact with them.
Gotcha.
Security people know me. I've had past relationships with these people when I was a prosecutor or since in private practice or through ATAP.
Yeah, I can see that.
Which for the people out there that don't know that we've been talking about is the Association of Threat Assessment Professionals. So they know that I do what I do and can be sort of a private prosecutor.
Right.
And sort of put things together and help them deliver things in liaison with the prosecutor's office and with law enforcement. Get the case prosecuted and decide what moves to make in a particular situation. Do we keep watching, and watch the person from afar and keep tabs on them? Do we take action? What action do we take? That sort of thing.
It was amazing to me. The Spilberg's guy was doing actually surveillance for a while to figure out their time, their movements, what cars. I mean, that's kind of scary. That's very tactical. That's very thought out. I mean,
a lot of these people are very bright, even though they're mentally ill. They're still very bright on some level.
Some high IQ level.
They're scattered, but they're not idiots. They can do very complicated thinking and create very complicated plans. And they've got a deviousness of sort of the thing you see in prison. People in prison, they got a lot of time on their hands.
Yeah.
All that time on their hands can lead to a lot of misdeeds you and I don't have time for because we have jobs during the day, right?
Right. Exactly. What's the so you said the biggest, you have a lot of scam artists going on right now, a big increase in that with women's hunting, going after wealthy men driving expensive cars. And there's other issues too that people should be aware of listening to the show that they should be prepared for the next end of the year holiday stuff?
I think you always have to worry about your security, even if you're Joe Blow living out in middle America, and take a look around your house. I'm a big believer in security systems. Think about weak points of entry, places where people might get into. Be very careful on social media. People put way too much information out there on social media. Photos of their kids, names of their kids, where they go to school. So that if somebody wants to do you harm for whatever reason, because they're a stalker who's fixated on you, because you're their doctor and they've fallen in love with you, which is a case I had, or they want money from you, you look like an easy victim. They can get a lot of information from those people on social media. So I tell the people that I deal with, even my friends and even the professionals that I deal with on a business basis, go take a look at your website and see what you put out there. And like, for example, my doctor, I helped him with his website. I took a look and, he's trying to market himself to the community and shows that he's a man that lives in the local community and he's active with his kids and in social groups, whatever. And I convinced him, you just can't have that information out on your website. It can be a time bomb if you run into the wrong person, and you very well may if you're someone like a doctor. Doctors deal with a lot of mentally ill people.
That's a really good point. I didn't think about that. Right? Totally true.
Yeah. So they're a category of people who is really at risk. Also lawyers.
Oh yeah, sure.
In fact, I have a lot of mentally ill people that contact me. They can be not only my clients, but they can be people contacting me to use me, like in the private investigator example I gave you. Sometimes I'll be contacted by people who, couple of broad categories. One, they're the people that think that the FBI is after them with the black helicopters and monitoring their brain waves and things like that.
Right. Good point.
And number two, people that want to use me to get at their victim. They'll come in and claim that they're the victim. they're being stalked. They want to file a restraining order, whatever. And you have to be very careful because there's a lot of false victims. I saw that when I was in the prosecutor's office as well. It's a place where you have to be aware of false victims.
Whoa, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And you have to almost have that radar on to see it before it comes. And then you get blindsided by the request. Like, wait a minute, what is this?
You do. And sometimes it's just not obvious. They sound good. They look good. They sound rational. I remember a lady that was claimed that she was being stalked by a neighbor. And I drove up to her place. She was way up in North LA County somewhere. I want to say like around Santa Clarita or somewhere. I went way up there and I wanted to see the layout for myself. And she starts telling me the situation and says, on such and such a date at such and such a time, she was 23.2 feet from my house. 23.2, huh? Okay. And another date, such and such a time, she was 53.7 feet from my house.
Okay.
And you start thinking, who talks like that? And how do you know that? And that spurs something in your head and you start looking and, you then realize something's not right here. After you get that initial opening.
Something's not clicking.
Right. So you have those cases. And like I said, it's not always obvious when they first come in. In fact, I just had one today that I was talking to my security team about, and I don't know that she's a false victim for a fact yet, but I have my suspicions based upon some of the comments she's made. So I've told them to investigate and take a hard look at it and be aware that it could be.
Do you think the current climate, getting out of the pandemic, and people just listening to the news cycle, it's just overwhelming their brain and just blowing it out of the water? Absolutely. I dealt with a couple of cases today, and I'm firmly convinced that these people went off the rails because of all the things that were happening during the pandemic, the isolation and taking them out of their normal routine. Excuse me. One of them was a defense case. I have a client who was a nursing student, and she, devolved during that period. She had some existing mental illness that she was coping with quite well, but she was from another state. She was here in nursing school. She was away from her family. Her boyfriend broke up with her. She was isolated. Her sleep pattern got disrupted. A bunch of things just piled on together. And next thing you know, she was leading Newport Beach PD on a big chase because she thought people were after her. Wow. Snapped.
Yeah. Another case I had, this was also a defense case. A lady I just had come in yesterday on a domestic violence case. She assaulted her husband and the police after they arrived. And she's got some substance abuse going on in combination with some mental illness. And a lot of it, I believe, was triggered by the lockdown and the pandemic and being at home for long periods of time and drinking. I see a lot of people drinking a lot more. They're at home with time on their hands and they think, I'm not driving, I'm not going anywhere, it's okay. And substance abuse starts to kick in.
It's kind of that must have exploded over the last year and a half, especially on the outside edge of the pandemic now. It seems like I'm hearing more and more about people just suffering with severe depression now than ever before.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think it had a lot of effects that we don't immediately see.
We'll probably start seeing the severeness of it probably in another 6 months to a year, workplace violence issues and all that type of thing.
Yeah, could be. Hopefully we come out of it. Hopefully most people can get back to normal, get back in their treatment. One of the big things with people with mental illness that I was seeing is they were kept away from their therapists as well.
Oh, yeah. That makes total sense.
People couldn't go to groups. They couldn't see their therapist in person. A lot of it was turned over to Zoom, which just wasn't the same.
It's not.
They weren't getting the treatment they needed. So a whole lot of stuff to unpack there.
Behavioral issues, stress, just being under the same roof with the your partner, your family for 2 years straight, and kids staying at home, and constant 24/7 stress. You're going to pop.
Right. I saw people who had marital problems to begin with, and then they couldn't get divorced. They were stuck there together. It was practical.
That sucks.
And you're trying to educate kids at home.
Oh, recipe for disaster. I know ATAP is a great organization. That was my first conference there, and I was like, whoa. I think they tapped it out of 1,000 people, but it was great attendance.
I was shocked. I walked in, I was a little bit late, and on the outside, you didn't really see anything going on. And I opened the door of the ballroom expecting a few hundred people, as I had seen in years gone by. And I was blown away to see 1,000+ people sitting in front of me.
Yeah, it was a different level of security, just the, threat management whole thing that they're doing, and how different, like your attorney, law enforcement officers that are involved. And that was my first one. I'm like, whoa, this is pretty significant.
And one change I've really seen in ATAP over the years is that it used to be law enforcement, a few attorneys, people like me, and then security people. And now you're seeing organizations like large health organizations and other corporations have their own threat assessment and management teams. And colleges, I don't know if you saw the presentation, people, I think it was the University of Illinois, who has their own threat assessment and management team, which you've seen in years gone by. You would have campus police trying to deal with a situation like that probably would not have gone well. And now you have a group of professionals there that are doing that, fulfilling that role, and trying to stop active shootings and things like that.
Elevating the standard, that's what we got to have in this, the culture and the environment we're in our country right now.
Yeah. One thing about that we may want to talk about if we have time, some of the training I did with the Secret Service back in the day.
Yeah, please do. Yeah.
One thing I would want to get across to people that are listening is that the Secret Service, and the way this came about is the FBI had done their serial killer profile that most people have heard of, either in TV shows or movies, Silence of the Lambs or things like that. Well, the Secret Service looked at it and said, and asked themselves, can we create a profile for assassins and people who would wish our protected people harm? And they did. And they quickly found out that almost all the cases they studied, the people had exhibited stalking behavior. So they looked around the country and said, who has experience with stalking? Well, I was in the unit in LA, and we were the first, and I think we were the first and maybe one of the few in the country. So they came to us, and then we collaborated together, and I went to some very good training back in Washington, D.C. with them. And they had a couple of psychological people. I don't remember whether I was psychiatrists or psychologists, but Voskil and Fine. And they had done this study of school shooters and workplace violence. And what they found, I think they studied 53 cases. And the thing that I would get across to people that's important, the reason they did, let me back up. The reason they did that, because they found that the assassins and the school shooters and the active shooters were the same people. They displayed the same behavior. So they were looking at the same profile. And one of the key things they found was that somebody always knows beforehand. These people don't simply erupt out of the blue, and somebody other than the shooter knows about it before they act. The question is, does that information get shared, and do they get stopped? Because there's a really definite pattern that they go through, and I'm going to cut it down for you, but two of the key points are ideation. They get the idea and they develop this idea, but then they will generally try it out on other people. They'll let people know, hey, I'm thinking of shooting up the school. What do you think? Or I'm going to do this. And there are some definite warning signs.
Are they doing that for confirmation, edification, or what are they doing that for?
Yeah. Yes. And in fact, there was one kid, I think he was in Alaska. He had told different kids around school that he was planning on, shooting up kids at a school meeting, and some of the kids were giving him lists hey, while you're at it, why don't you add these people to your list? So, and so there were kids that are waiting for it to happen. And that's usually the case. It's not usually that big where a lot of people know, but some people know, friends, family, coworkers, what have you. And there are warning signs and there are tripping points that people get to where they think there's a point of no return. So the big lesson I think take away from that we're trying to get across to people is that don't keep your mouth shut. If you see something, say something. And of course, we don't want false warnings every time a kid in a classroom draws a picture of a gun.
Right.
Maybe he's not a rat. Maybe he's just being a kid.
Maybe being a kid. Exactly.
Yeah. But, coworkers exhibiting very threatening, physically threatening, intimidating behavior, talking about shooting people and things. Maybe, it's time to say something.
Do you feel most people are embarrassed to admit that they know something? They're afraid to admit it, and then they look like an adversary, maybe?
That one's hard to say. I think a lot of times people think, well, it's no big deal. He's just mouthing off. He's never done it before, obviously.
Right.
So he's just mouthing and won't do anything, or, they don't want to get a family member in trouble, or they don't want to be identified as the person that pointed the guy out. I think there's a whole range of reasons, or people just being stupid.
They do.
Not recognizing the behavior. I see that in parents a lot.
Oh, do you? Okay.
Yeah, with the people I represent. Some of the parents I deal with are just completely clueless about their kids' behavior.
Why is that, I wonder?
Oh my gosh, that's probably an hour conversation.
Just so much stress in life and trying to keep their job and pay their bills.
Well, I think they're just clueless. They're not wanting to see.
They don't want to see it.
They don't want to see what's there. I had a kid in my office that was had an incident surrounding drugs. You can look at the kid and get a pretty good. I mean, you don't want to stereotype people, but you can get a look at the kid. He's probably a druggie.
Yeah, you just look at it, see it.
Parents who just, goes right over their head, and their behavior, some of his behavior that they're just excusing is meaningless, is just obvious as to what it is. They're not wanting to believe. And I think there's an incrementalism there. If you see somebody every day, you don't see the slow march from where, Johnny goes from this nice little 12-year-old kid to this drug-addled 17-year-old over a period of many, many, days, weeks, months, and years. And probably lenient parent behavior as well.
Parents sound like parents probably checked out. They stressed out with everything going on in life.
You don't want to stereotype, but you see this kid and you may not jump to the conclusion right away that he's on drugs, but I think if you're a good parent, you would be doing some investigation.
So your advice is the parents these days need to be more involved in their kids' lives and what's really going on in their heads.
Boy, it's hard to give parental advice. But I think in many cases, I would say in many cases, let's say that in many cases, I think, yeah. And again, getting back to drugs are an epidemic.
It's killing the families right now. Drugs
are an epidemic. Kids and the vaping and, the drugs and the vaping and it's an epidemic in our high schools and now even into our middle schools.
Sad. Here's an idea. Maybe the parents take away the smartphones out of their hands and take them camping for a weekend. Get away from town. Go camping. Get outdoors.
I'm a firm believer in that. You need to limit the video access. That's something I see as well. And the kids that I have that are in trouble, along with the drugs, a lot of the time, most if not all the time, I'm trying to think of the cases, but there's that element too, where there's just hours and hours and hours of video game playing.
Just nonstop.
Right.
They're getting that dopamine hit every time they play that game. That just hit.
Yeah.
It's basically a drug. It's the chemically created drug.
It was about the way they use the drug, especially cannabis products. It's continuous. With alcohol, I'm not saying that alcohol is a good thing, but typically there's some drinking and then it's finished. But you have a lot of the kids I see in trouble will get up in the morning and they start with the the marijuana, the vape pen, or whatever way that they're ingesting it in the morning. It goes all day long.
So they don't really turn it off.
Yeah. And some of these kids are I don't know if I said this before, very high functioning kids. I have, I've had kids in the last couple of years that are students at Berkeley, Penn, UCLA. I'm trying to think of some of them. And in all these kids, you see the same behavior. If they're not in class, they're back in their room playing video games to all hours of the night and using drugs.
Wow.
Until it catches up with them.
Are they kind of frying their brains away by doing all this?
Yeah.
They don't realize it.
It's the drug-induced psychosis, or it's the structural damage that they do. They can't function. Their emotions, their emotional level is all over the board. Sometimes they get paranoid. And, we have this idea of stereotype of Cheech and Chong, and people on marijuana are just happy and peaceful, and the only thing in danger is a bag of Doritos or a pepperoni pizza. But after these kids especially, do this damage to themselves, they are violent often.
Wow. I see a ticking time bomb, and
you just can't function. I see a ticking time bomb.
Whoa.
Yeah, I don't know. I really worry about where things are going to be 10 years down the line, when this is just built and built and built in the younger populations.
Wow. But that what we're describing are millions of families across the country that have suffered through the pandemic, and then the domestic, abuse is going on with the partners in that household. The kids are seeing that, so they're shutting themselves down and go play video games and put on their headset and just hours and hours just disappear in the bubble.
Right.
And then they go hit life and start living life to try to pay their bills, and they start snapping because they can't take it.
Yeah. And probably a contributing factor too is they're not good at personal interaction.
They hate it.
They're not used to dealing with people face to face.
Yeah, I can't get anybody to answer the phone that younger than 30. They'll blow my phone up in a text message. I'll call. They won't take it, but they'll blow me up. I'm not text. What do I say? I'm not writing a book on a phone. You can call me, or we're not talking.
Yeah.
And they can't handle it. I was like, don't text me. I'm not going to return. And it's just, like you said, it's an avoidance issue.
Yeah. I have to say though, I see some great kids out there too, though.
That's good.
I don't want to sound like an old man and get off my lawn.
Yeah.
But I think it's a matter of degree. I think it's a matter of numbers of people that are unstable, or percentage of the population that's unstable. We're
going to start seeing some people acting out here soon.
Yeah.
We're starting to get out of the pandemic now. Everybody's getting back to school. And so this is what our first, probably school semester we've had getting out of the pandemic. So everybody's, we'll start seeing some stuff probably happen the next 6 months to a year.
Yeah, could be.
Hopefully not. Hope I'm wrong.
We'll see.
Wow.
Glass half full.
Yeah.
I'm glass half full.
Optimistic.
I think and hope that we always find a way. But
exactly.
These are some of the challenges we have right now.
We're a resilient culture in a country, so we'll figure a way to get through all this.
We always find a way to come back.
Yep.
Just when it looks the bleakest, we always find a way to come back.
Well, I know your time is precious. We're at the top of the hour, and folks, this is Mike Brewer with the Brewer Law Firm. Brewer. I don't have my glasses on.
Yeah.
Oh, Brewer, yeah. I'm going blind thanks to my phone.
I didn't want to wear my glasses for the video, but I had to. I had to put vanity aside because I couldn't see.
There you go, folks. I got to wear my glasses. So, Michael Brewer and Brewer Law Firm out of Orange County. He's been in law for how many years?
32.
It's a long time being a lawyer.
Years.
But yeah, we connected and wanted to have him on the show just to get a feel of what he deals with in the lawyer perspective. A lot of criminal cases, DUI stuff, and as he shared in the show, what he deals with on a daily basis with many different various clients. So if you're looking for help and what you're dealing with and your issues, and maybe you're company or your family or whatever you're dealing with, reach out to Mike. We're both connected on LinkedIn. And any final word you want to say to the audience, Mike, before we wrap this up?
Oh my gosh, let me see if I can give you something profound. I don't know what it can be at 5 o'clock this afternoon after this, but like we said, parents, you really have to monitor your kids out there and be aware of what they're doing. And really watch out, keep them away from the drugs. That's the biggest issue I see there today that I'd pass along to you. And it's the safety of get back, what we were talking about. If you see something threatening a coworker or somebody else and something you think is threatening, say something. And we're all in this together. The population's growing. We have our challenges, but like we said, we always seem to find a way to come back. Good people will find a way through and to get through the other side and keep your heads up. We're coming out of the pandemic, thankfully. Hopefully that's over. And society can move forward again with our challenges, but moving forward.
Onwards and upwards with resilience.
Yes.
So, folks, if you want to follow us on YouTube, we're on YouTube. We'll be publishing this in a few weeks. And you can follow me on Facebook as well, Mark Ludlow on LinkedIn, and Mike on LinkedIn as well. So thanks for listening, folks. And we'll catch you on the next episode of the Fearless Mindset Podcast. Thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you on the next episode. See you soon.